Soldiers, friends, my companions in arms, hear me now. I speak not as your king alone, but as one who has stood beside you, shared your hunger, your thirst, your fear, your triumphs, and your losses. You have followed me across mountains, rivers, deserts, and seas. You have seen lands no Greek has ever seen, and yet never once did I doubt the courage within you. Let me tell you the story of how we came to be here, how a boy from Macedonia, son of Philip, came to shape the fate of nations. I was young, yes, only 20 years when my father fell, yet even then I understood the weight of the crown. Philip had united Greece under the Hellenic League, forging alliances and crushing those who opposed him. Athens, Thebes, city-states of great pride and might, all bowed to his vision, all but Sparta, who stood in silence, unwilling to bend. From him I inherited not just a kingdom, but a plan, a campaign against the Persian Empire, the mightiest power of our age, its wealth vast, its lands sprawling across the known world. But first I had to secure my home. I had to show Macedonia that my will was absolute, that my hand was strong, and so I did. Potential rivals were removed, rebellions crushed, Thebes was razed, its people sold into slavery, a lesson to all who would question the authority of Alexander. When the time came, we crossed the Hellespont into Asia Minor. 40,000 strong, our army was drawn from across Greece, Macedonian Phalangites in the front, their sarissas long as the eye could reach. Shield bearers guarded our flanks, elite cavalry waited, their hooves pounding the earth with anticipation. I led the royal squadron myself, and I remember the fear in the eyes of those Persians who had never faced men such as you, such as us. At the Granicus we met the Persian army, their numbers greater, their cavalry proud, but they had not known courage like ours. I remember the river, its waters cold and rushing, arrows and javelins raining upon us. Yet we pressed on, for retreat was a word that did not exist in our tongue, and in the heart of the battle I faced two Persian nobles. One struck my helmet, breaking it, and yet I struck him down. Another raised his sword to my back, but Cleitus, my brother in arms, saved me, cutting down the threat with swift precision. The river was ours, the Persian army broken, their Greek mercenaries surrounded, and no mercy was given. Victory was ours, but it was only the beginning. From Granicus we pressed further, taking Sardis without a fight, subduing coastal cities, securing ports, and neutralizing fleets that threatened our lines of communication. We moved along the coast, Lycia and Phrygia, until we reached Gordium. There, before the eyes of my men, I cut the Gordian knot with a single stroke. Prophecy had been challenged, fate tested, and I claimed it, not with patience, but with action. The Persians could see a king among men, not bound by indecision, but willing to act, willing to shape destiny with his own hands. Then came Issus. Darius had gathered his army, a force vast, overwhelming, yet here we stood, smaller but sharpened by every battle, every hardship, every mile marched. I positioned our phalanx, elite cavalry, skirmishers, my hypaspists, and Agrianes all in formation, our flanks protected, our right wing poised. I called out to my men by name, for every heart matters when the fates of nations hang in balance. The shock of our charge, the thunder of hooves, the clashing of iron and steel, it was chaos, yet within it, order. I sought Darius himself, and when he fled, panic swept his army. Our left wing, however, faced the elite Persian cavalry, and Parmenion held fast, preventing encirclement. Victory was ours, but earned with sweat and blood. Egypt welcomed us as liberators. At Memphis, the priests crowned me pharaoh, a son of Amun, while along the Nile I founded Alexandria, a city to endure across centuries. Tyre resisted, a fortress island, yet our determination knew no bounds. 7 months of siege, fireships, towers, laborious effort, until the city fell. Gaza, too, fell before our might. We pressed on into the deserts, across the mountains, and into the heart of India, facing kings and elephants, rivers and storms, until even the boldest soldiers, weary from 8 years of campaigning, refused to march further at the hyphasis. And yet no obstacle, no army, no land was too great. Bactrian and Sogdian revolts were crushed, cities founded, rulers humbled, rebels defeated. But even I, Alexander, could not command the hearts of men to love conquest endlessly. At Opis my Macedonian troops mutinied, offended by my adoption of Persian customs. I faced them not with anger alone, but with words, reminding them of every victory we shared, every empire we carved, every glory we claimed. In time, reconciliation came. Tears and pride mingled as we stood together once more. Still, fate would test us further. Hephaestion, my closest friend, my brother in arms, died. Grief enveloped me, and for days I fasted, mourning the loss, yet the world did not pause. I pressed on, waging campaigns, founding cities, punishing the unjust, and securing the loyalty of distant provinces. All the while, our names, your names, would echo across lands, from the deserts of Gedrosia to the Indus, from the mountains of Bactria to the banks of the Nile. This is the life of a king, a general, a man who would not be constrained by borders or fear. We pressed eastward, ever onward, until death found me at the age of 32. Yet even in death, our story, our campaigns, our victories endure. The empire remains vast, but it is built upon the courage of men such as you, who dared to follow a boy from Macedonia to the edge of the world. You are the glory of Alexander, the strength of Macedonia, and the echo of every battle we fought together. After crossing the Indus, we faced Porus, king of the Paravis, a warrior as brave as any I had met. His elephants struck terror into my men, their size and power unmatched, yet we fought with discipline, strategy, and unyielding courage. The Battle of the Hydaspes was brutal, our casualties heavy, but victory came at last. Porus was spared, treated as an ally, and his lands brought under our control. We pressed further east, toward the Hyphasis, the great river that marked the edge of the world according to Greek maps. It was there, after years of endless campaigning, after countless battles, that my men, exhausted, homesick, and fearful of the unknown, refused to march further. They had followed me across continents, fought armies, endured deserts and mountains, yet their courage had limits, and I could not force them beyond them. Reluctantly, I turned westward, tracing the rivers of the Punjab to the sea, defeating tribes along the way, securing cities, and founding Alexandria, a name to mark the reach of our empire. Nearchus took command of a fleet, sailing unknown seas from the mouth of the Indus through the Strait of Hormuz to the Persian Gulf, charting waters unseen by Greeks, while I led the main army west across the Gedrosian desert. The heat was merciless, food and water scarce, yet my men endured, driven by loyalty, discipline, and the knowledge that together we could overcome any hardship. Many perished, but those who survived knew they had been forged in the crucible of history. Returning to Persia, I found governors had grown corrupt in our absence. Those accused of injustice, robbery, and impiety were punished swiftly. At Susa, I orchestrated the mass marriage of Macedonian officers to Persian noblewomen, binding our cultures, securing loyalty, and demonstrating the unity that would hold our empire together. I myself married Roxana, daughter of a Bactrian lord, consolidating alliances and honoring local traditions. Even as we rebuilt, I faced dissent. At Opis, Macedonian soldiers mutinied, angered by Persian influence and my adoption of foreign customs. I reminded them of every victory, every city taken, every battle won, every life spared, and every glory earned. Reconciliation followed, tears mingling with pride, and our unity was restored. Yet life would not allow me rest. Hephaestion, my closest companion, my friend, my brother in arms, died suddenly. I mourned him publicly and privately, grief consuming me for days. yet the work of empire pressed onward. We subdued the raiders of Kosea, brought remote provinces into obedience, and were met in Babylon by ambassadors from distant lands. Ethiopians, European Scythians, Gauls, Iberians, all seeking recognition, all witnessing the reach of our power. Roxana was with child, ensuring the lineage of Alexander would endure. Yet even as we planned further campaigns, my life was cut short. Fever struck, sudden and merciless, and at 32 I breathed my last. The causes remain uncertain: malaria, typhus, cholera, or poison, but my empire, forged by blood, courage, and relentless drive, would live on. My generals, my companions, my soldiers inherited not just lands, but the burden of ruling the vast territories we conquered. Wars erupted between my successors, my wife and child murdered, my gold sarcophagus diverted from its journey to Macedonia, resting in Egypt, its fate still a mystery. Yet the world remembers not my death, but my life, my deeds, my vision. From Greece to Egypt, from Persia to India, my campaigns spread Hellenistic culture, blending Greek ideas with local traditions, advancing art, science, governance, and language. My empire was fleeting, yes, yet its impact was immortal. Cities founded in my name endured, knowledge spread, borders shifted. History was written anew. My soldiers, my men who marched beside me, who bled and fought and conquered, you are the true legacy of Alexander. For without your courage, your loyalty, your unwavering spirit, none of this would have been possible. From the first step across the Hellespont to the deserts of Gedrosia, every battle, every siege, every city taken, every foe defeated was not the work of one man, but of many. You were my strength, my shield, my phalanx, my companions in glory. And though I am gone, let it be known that together we achieved what few in history could dream. The empire may fracture, successors may fight, cities may rise and fall, but the name Alexander and the deeds of those who followed him shall echo across time, remembered as the greatest, the boldest, the relentless force to shape the known world. Stand proud, my soldiers, for you carried the vision of Macedonia across lands no man had trodden, forged victories no empire could foresee, and left a legacy that will outlast kings, nations, and centuries. You are immortal, as is our story, and the shadow of our conquest will stretch as long as history is told. After my death, the empire I had built with blood, courage, and vision faced uncertainty. I left no clear heir of age to rule, and my generals, my trusted companions, those who had marched, fought, and bled beside me, turned on one another, carving the empire into pieces. My son with Roxana was too young to claim the throne, and my widow was caught in the deadly struggle for power. The wars of the successors erupted, the Adoki fighting the Adoki, each claiming a piece of the lands we had conquered. Despite the chaos, my vision endured in cities I founded from Egypt to Afghanistan. Alexandria in Egypt grew into a beacon of knowledge, trade, and culture, a meeting point for Greeks, Egyptians, Persians, and peoples from across the known world. Other cities bearing my name spread Hellenistic influence, blending Greek thought, art, language, and governance with local traditions. The Hellenistic age was born from our conquests, and it reshaped history. Scholars, artists, and scientists thrived in cities like Alexandria, Pergamon, and Antioch. Libraries amassed knowledge, mathematics advanced, philosophy flourished, and architecture reached new heights. Trade and ideas flowed freely across lands once divided by war, and Greek culture fused with Persian, Egyptian, Indian, and Central Asian traditions. My generals ruled as kings, establishing dynasties in Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Asia Minor, but none could recreate the unity of the empire I had forged. Even so, my campaigns inspired generations of rulers, soldiers, and thinkers. Rome would rise, taking lessons from our victories and strategies, and the echoes of my ambition would shape empires to come. My name became a legend, a symbol of daring, courage, and the relentless pursuit of glory. Statues, coins, and stories preserve the memory of Alexander the Great, the man who defied the impossible, who crossed continents, defeated armies larger than any had seen, and left a mark on the world that no time could erase. The life was short, my deeds were eternal. Every battle, every city, every march, every sacrifice was a testament to vision, leadership, and the power of men united for a common purpose. You, my companions, and all who followed, are the living proof that greatness is achieved, not alone, but together. And so, the story of Alexander the Great, from the mountains of Macedonia to the rivers of India, from the deserts of Gedrosia to the cities of Persia, lives on. The empire may fragment, rulers may rise and fall, but the legend, the vision, and the lessons endure. History remembers the audacity, the strategy, the courage, and the relentless drive of a man who, in just 32 years, changed the world forever. And in that story, every soldier, every city, every victory, every challenge faced alongside me is immortal. Stand proud, for the shadow of our conquest stretches far beyond our lives into eternity, and the world will remember as long as men and nations learn from the deeds of Alexander, the greatest general, the relentless conqueror, the son of Macedonia who dared to reach the edge of the world and beyond. After returning from the eastern provinces, Alexander faced the immense challenge of ruling an empire that stretched from Greece to the Indus River, a territory filled with people of different languages, customs, and loyalties. Many of his Macedonian soldiers were weary, homesick, and increasingly resentful of his adoption of Persian customs and attire, which they saw as foreign and decadent. Despite their grievances, Alexander remained unwavering, believing that blending Macedonian and Persian traditions would stabilize his rule and create a lasting empire. At Susa, he orchestrated one of the most extraordinary political events of his career, the mass marriage of over 80 Macedonian officers to Persian noblewomen, including his own marriage to Statira, daughter of Darius III. This was not only a gesture of unity, but also a calculated political move to secure loyalty and legitimize his dominance over the conquered lands. His vision extended beyond mere conquest. He wanted to integrate cultures, to create an empire where Macedonians and Persians could coexist under his leadership. Yet these efforts sowed seeds of dissent among his closest men. The Macedonian troops, accustomed to the austere life of their homeland, often clashed with Alexander's increasingly cosmopolitan court. Incidents like the killing of Cletus the Black, his longtime friend and protector, after a drunken argument, illustrated the growing tension between his ambitions and the loyalty of his men. Even so, Alexander pressed on, determined to push the boundaries of the known world. In 327 BC, he crossed into the mountainous regions of modern-day Afghanistan, subduing rebellious tribes and establishing cities to secure his lines of communication. His army, though exhausted from years of relentless campaigning, continued to follow him across deserts, rivers, and treacherous mountains. One of the most arduous challenges came with the crossing of the Hindu Kush Mountains, where harsh terrain, cold weather, and hostile local tribes tested the limits of his soldiers' endurance. Every step eastward was a testament to Alexander's leadership. He shared the hardships of his men, often leading from the front in combat, demonstrating courage that inspired loyalty even amid growing discontent. Upon reaching the Indus River, Alexander faced King Porus, a ruler known for his formidable army and massive war elephants. The Battle of the Hydaspes would become one of Alexander's costliest yet most celebrated victories. His troops had never faced elephants in such numbers, and yet, through meticulous planning and tactical brilliance, he managed to outflank Porus, neutralize the elephants, and rout the opposing forces. Despite the ferocity of the battle, Alexander treated Porus with respect, allowing him to retain his kingdom as a vassal. This act reinforced his reputation not just as a conqueror, but as a magnanimous ruler who could combine strategic ruthlessness with political wisdom. Yet even this victory could not quell the growing mutiny among his soldiers. At the river Hyphasis, modern-day Beas, his men refused to march further into India. Years of campaigning, immense hardships, and the prospect of facing even larger armies had exhausted them. Alexander's fury was immense, yet he understood their limits. Reluctantly, he turned back, retracing his steps along the rivers of the Punjab, consolidating control over newly founded cities such as Nicaea and Alexandria, and securing supply lines for the long journey home. On the return journey, he continued to expand his empire through subjugation and foundation of new settlements, demonstrating his unyielding ambition and vision of empire. The march through the Gadrosian desert tested his army like never before, with scorching heat, scarcity of food and water, and relentless physical strain. Many soldiers perished, and Alexander himself suffered severe privations, yet he endured, exemplifying the extreme personal sacrifices he made for conquest. Once back in Persia, he took decisive actions against viceroys and governors who had exploited their provinces during his absence, ensuring loyalty and order throughout the empire. He established administrative reforms, trained youth in Macedonian military tactics, and strengthened bonds between Macedonians and Persians, securing the long-term cohesion of his vast dominion. Yet amid his triumphs, Alexander faced personal tragedy. The sudden death of Hephaestion, his closest friend and confidant, left him grief-stricken. He mourned publicly, displaying the depth of his attachment and the human vulnerability of a man often seen as larger than life. Even in the face of empire-wide conquest, Alexander remained a man of emotion, driven not only by ambition but by personal connections, loyalty, and ideals. As he looked to the future, Alexander planned campaigns further east, dreaming of reaching Arabia and even the unknown territories beyond the Indian Ocean. However, fate would not allow these ambitions to be realized. In 323 BC, at the age of just 32, Alexander fell gravely ill in Babylon. Despite his immense achievements, his death came suddenly under circumstances still debated by historians: malaria, typhus, or possibly poisoning. His passing left the empire without a clear successor, and the vast territories he had conquered would soon fragment into the hands of his generals. Even so, Alexander's legacy was immortal. His military genius, courage, vision of cultural integration, and unyielding ambition reshaped the ancient world. Cities he founded, ideas he spread, and battles he won continued to influence civilizations for centuries, ushering in the Hellenistic Age, a fusion of Greek and Eastern cultures that laid the groundwork for future empires, including Rome. Alexander's ambition was insatiable. Even after returning from India, he refused to rest. The cities he had founded, stretching from Egypt to the Indus, became centers of Greek culture, administration, and trade, but he knew that control over such vast lands required constant attention. He traveled tirelessly, inspecting garrisons, meeting local rulers, and ensuring that the Macedonian and Persian soldiers were integrated into a single fighting force loyal to him. At Babylon, the heart of his empire, he was welcomed as a god-king, a symbol of conquest and divine favor. Yet behind the pageantry and feasts, tensions simmered among his men. The Macedonians, proud and fiercely independent, resented the growing influence of Persian nobles in their army and court. They viewed Alexander's adoption of Persian dress, customs, and rituals, including proskynesis, the act of prostration before the king, as an affront to their traditions. Alexander faced delicate challenges, balancing the demands of his soldiers with the needs of a multicultural empire. The mutiny at Opis was a turning point. His Macedonian veterans refused to continue service, offended by his preference for Persian advisors. Alexander's fury was palpable. He addressed the men personally, reminding them of the battles they had fought together, the cities they had conquered, and the glory they had earned. With a voice both commanding and compassionate, he spoke of the spoils of war they had claimed, the wealth of kingdoms that were now theirs, and the dangers they had overcome side by side. He reminded them that every scar, every wound, every sleepless night had been endured for the sake of victory and honor. Slowly, the army's resentment melted into loyalty once more, as they recognized that Alexander's vision was not just conquest, but the creation of a world they could all share. Even as reconciliation was achieved, Alexander's personal grief shadowed him. Hephaestion, his dearest friend and companion, fell ill and died suddenly in Ecbatana. Alexander's mourning was profound. He fasted for days, ordered lavish funerary rites, and demanded public mourning across the empire. The loss tested him as a leader, yet he channeled his sorrow into determination to secure his empire and leave a lasting legacy. In 327 BC, Alexander embarked once again into the unknown eastern territories. The march into Bactria and Sogdia was perilous. Rugged mountains, hostile tribes, and treacherous passes turned each day into a struggle. Yet Alexander's presence inspired his men. He fought at the front, leading charges, rallying soldiers, and demonstrating courage that often bordered on recklessness. The cities he captured were either incorporated into his growing network of Alexandrias or placed under loyal satraps who pledged allegiance to him. His strategic vision was evident in every decision: fortify supply lines, integrate local populations, reward loyalty, and punish treachery. Resistance was constant. In Bactria, local rulers attempted revolts, and Alexander responded with decisive action, often leading from the front in single combat duels that became legendary. In one instance, the rebel Sadi Barzanes was personally killed by a Macedonian officer under Alexander's command, demonstrating the unforgiving efficiency of his rule. Each victory consolidated his power and sent a message that rebellion would not be tolerated. By 329 BC, Alexander reached the Oxus River and then moved further into the lands that are today part of Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. His army faced the Scythians, nomadic warriors famed for their horseback archery. Alexander's strategic brilliance came to the fore. Using terrain, feints, and the disciplined coordination of his phalanx and cavalry, he lured the Scythians into battle on his terms, defeating them decisively and securing the frontier of his empire. Every step eastward, every city conquered, every tribe subdued, added to the legend of Alexander. His soldiers, though exhausted, followed him across deserts, mountains, and rivers, motivated not just by duty, but by awe of a leader who lived among them, shared their hardships, and embodied the martial ideal they had been trained to follow. His vision of blending cultures continued. Cities founded along his route became melting pots of Greek and local traditions. Greek theaters, temples, and administrative systems were built alongside native customs, ensuring loyalty and cultural integration. Yet Alexander's personal life remained intertwined with politics. His marriage to Roxana, the daughter of a Bactrian lord, was both a personal union and a political strategy to cement alliances and pacify newly conquered regions. Further marriages and arrangements of his officers to Persian noblewomen at Susa were aimed at weaving a web of loyalty across the empire. But power and ambition also bred paranoia. Alexander executed Philotas and ordered the assassination of Parmenion, his most trusted generals, under suspicion of plotting against him. These harsh measures were controversial, but they ensured absolute obedience and eliminated potential rivals. Even as he expanded his empire, Alexander faced rebellion, plotting, and the constant need to assert authority over men who had once fought beside him as equals. His campaigns in India, particularly against Porus at the Battle of the Hydaspes, demonstrated not just military brilliance but strategic compassion. He respected his defeated enemy, reinstating Porus as a vassal and integrating his forces into his army. Yet victory came at a cost. Elephants inflicted severe casualties, rivers and monsoon rains complicated maneuvers, and his troops, after years of relentless campaigning, began to mutiny at the river Hyphasis, refusing to march further. Alexander's fury was immense, but he acquiesced, understanding the limits of his men. Their refusal did not diminish his ambition, but forced him to consolidate, secure new cities, and plan the next phase of administration and integration. The return journey from India tested both his leadership and the endurance of his men. The march through the Gedrosian desert became legendary for its hardships. Scorching heat, water scarcity, and relentless terrain led to many deaths. Yet Alexander's personal example, sharing the suffering and demonstrating resilience, maintained the loyalty of his army. Upon returning to Persia, Alexander conducted inspections, punished corrupt governors, and continued his policy of integrating Macedonians and Persians, blending administration, law, and military organization. His mass marriages at Susa, military training of youth, and ceremonial displays of authority were designed to consolidate his vast empire. Yet amid these achievements, tragedy struck again with the death of Hephaestion. Alexander's grief was public and profound, illustrating that even the greatest conqueror was human, capable of deep personal loss and mourning. As he looked to the future, plans to march further east into Arabia and beyond remained unfulfilled. His sudden illness and death in 323 BC at Babylon, at only 32 years of age, ended a life of unprecedented conquest. The empire he had built, stretching from Greece to the edge of India, lacked a clear succession plan and soon fragmented among his generals. Despite this, Alexander's impact was immeasurable. Cities he founded remained centers of culture and administration. Greek ideas, art, and philosophy spread across continents. His campaigns reshaped military tactics, inspired leaders for centuries, and ushered in the Hellenistic Age, a fusion of Greek and local cultures that influenced civilizations long after his death. Alexander's legend endured not merely because of his victories, but because of his vision. The ambition to unite diverse peoples under a common order, the courage to lead from the front, and the determination to push the boundaries of the known world. Few men in history have combined brilliance, audacity, and charisma to such a degree. He was not merely a conqueror, he was a visionary whose life changed the course of history forever. Alexander's death left a vacuum that would plunge his empire into chaos. Without a clear heir, his generals, known as the Diadochi, fought bitterly for control, carving the empire into separate kingdoms. Some of his cities, like Alexandria in Egypt, became thriving centers of commerce, learning, and culture, while others faded into obscurity. Yet the influence of Alexander's conquests lasted far beyond politics and warfare. Greek language, art, and architecture spread across Egypt, Persia, Central Asia, and India, blending with local traditions to create a new Hellenistic culture that shaped societies for centuries. His military tactics, particularly the use of the phalanx, cavalry coordination, and combined arms strategy, were studied by generations of generals, influencing campaigns from the Romans to Napoleon. Scholars, philosophers, and historians chronicled his deeds, elevating him to the status of legend even in his own lifetime. Stories of his courage, leadership, and daring spread across continents, inspiring poets, storytellers, and rulers alike. Cities founded by Alexander often bore his name, serving as lasting monuments to his ambition and vision. Alexandria in Egypt became a hub of knowledge and trade, its library preserving works from across the known world. In Asia, the spread of Greek ideas merged with local customs, creating syncretic cultures that endured long after his death. Even the successors who fought over his empire recognized the genius of their predecessor, studying his campaigns and attempting to emulate his strategies. Alexander's legacy was not only in conquest but in the transformation of the world he touched. The Hellenistic kingdoms fostered advancements in science, medicine, mathematics, and philosophy. Ideas and innovations traveled farther than his armies, connecting civilizations that had previously been isolated. Merchants, scholars, and travelers carried knowledge from Greece to Persia, from Egypt to India, leaving an indelible mark on human history. Though he lived only 32 years, Alexander's ambition, vision, and audacity ensured that his name would be remembered for millennia. Few men have reshaped the world so dramatically in so short a life. Alexander the Great became more than a king or general. He became a symbol of human aspiration, courage, and the relentless pursuit of greatness. His story reminds us that the boundaries of the known world can be expanded, that cultures can be united through vision and determination, and that the mark of a single individual can echo through the ages, inspiring generations long after his own time has ended. From the burning plains of Persia to the rivers of India, from the cities he founded to the cultures he transformed, Alexander's life was a testament to ambition, brilliance, and the enduring power of history. Alexander the Great's story is one of ambition, courage, and unparalleled vision. He reshaped the ancient world, conquered empires thought untouchable, and left a legacy that would influence generations long after his death. From Macedonia to India, from the Nile to the Persian heartlands, his campaigns connected cultures, spread knowledge, and forever changed the course of history. He showed what one determined leader, fearless in battle and brilliant in strategy, could achieve. Yet his life also reminds us of the cost of ambition, the endless wars, the lives lost, the struggles of those left to inherit his empire. Alexander's empire did not last, but his ideas, cities, and the Hellenistic culture he inspired endured. He became a symbol of greatness, a name that echoes through history, inspiring leaders, scholars, and dreamers even today. To study Alexander is to understand the power of vision, the impact of leadership, and the way one life, brief as it may be, can leave an indelible mark on the world. His story is not just about battles and conquests. It is about the human drive to push boundaries, challenge the impossible, and leave a legacy that lasts far beyond one lifetime. Alexander the Great was more than a king, more than a general. He was a force of history whose life continues to fascinate, teach, and inspire.